And people ask me about it all the time. So what do you mean when you tell us to love these people who are beating on us and bombing our houses and kicking our children around? What in the world do you mean when you say love such people? And I always have to stop and try to define the meaning of love in this area. And interestingly enough, Greek philosophy comes to our aid at this point. There are three words in the Greek language for love. One of them is the word eros. Now, eros is a sort of aesthetic love. It has come to us to mean a sort of romantic love, and so we all know about eros. We've experienced it. We read about it in the beauties of literature. Then the Greek language talks about phileo, which is another level of love. It is an intimate affection between personal friends. On this level, we love because we are loved. We love people that we like. This is friendship. Then the Greek language has another word called agape. Agape is more than romantic love. Agape is more than friendship. Agape is not something affectionate. Agape is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men. It is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. Theologians would say that it is the love of God operating in the human heart. And when one rises to love on this level, he loves men not because he likes them, but he loves every man because God loves him. He goes on with that. And so he rises to the level of hating the system rather than the individual who is caught up in that system. He loves the person and hates the evil deed. And I think this is what Jesus meant when he said, love your enemies. And I'm happy that he didn't say like your enemies, because it's pretty difficult to like some people. It's difficult to like people bombing your home and threatening your children and kicking you about. But Jesus says love them, and love is greater than like. Love is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men. And somehow, more and more I've come to believe this. That this is the way that we will get out of this dark night of oppression.
Hey folks, and welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. Love is the only way. Getting into love, which very few people understand the meaning of. It's not discussed, it's not taught in school. We're told to love one another, but we don't really know what that means. So here we have Valentine's Day, supposedly the love day of the year, but like everything else, it's been converted by the Roman Catholic Vaticans and the Jesuits to mean something completely different from what it used to mean, also to persecute paganism. They're hiding it, they don't want it out. So this is a picture from circa 1250 to depict Roman martyr Saint Valentine curing an epileptic. So he was a healer, apparently. So there may be love in the air, but today's holiday is far darker than any dozen red roses. Now, Rosicrucian red rose. The red rose was dropped on the lady that V for Vendetta, the Jesuit movie V for Vendetta, killed the woman who was causing the epidemics, partly with the flus, or with the vaccines. And he went and killed her and put a red rose, a specific type of red rose. So they're showing you what's happening, hidden in plain sight kind of thing. So Valentine's Day is traditionally celebrated on the 14th. Pope Gelasius declared in 489 AD to honor the martyr Valentinus and to end a pagan celebration, Valentinus was executed for not renouncing his Christian beliefs in the face of persecution by Roman officials. Here are the heretics, the Dark Ages. He was executed on February 14th, 269. So we're celebrating the execution of someone who was a healer who would not renounce his Christian faith to the Roman Catholic Church. Figure that one out. In 5th century Rome, people honored Juno, the pagan goddess of love and marriage, on February 14th, 5th century. During the celebration, men would draw women's names and aggressively court them for marriage. The tradition of sending heart-shaped valentines is said to have begun in England in the 1840s, later spreading to the U.S. Valentine's Day has developed a backlash known as anti-Valentinism. The belief of the day has become commercialized and lost its significance on lovers expressing love for one another. It's also a way to make money. So I did a piece here on love. Hang on. Love is. When you seek love in your heart, you'll find that it echoes throughout the universe. Rumi. Already heard Martin Luther King speak on the 3 types of love. A diamond is associated with pure love. It is the hardest, most pure light refracting mineral on earth. It is created from coal like carbon, flammable and black. To achieve its diamondhood, it must be hardened under intense heat and tensions in the bowels of the earth over long, vast periods of time. We are all carbon beings with diamond-like potentiality. Yet to reach our highest potential, all must first endure the intense heat and pressure, never forgetting whence we came, yet consciously knowing that which our highest selves are capable of achieving in this lifetime. There is such a love that creates value in what is loved. There is a love that turns rag dolls into priceless treasures. There is a love that fastens itself into ragged little creatures for reasons that no one ever could quite figure out and makes them precious and valued beyond calculation. This is love beyond reason. This is the love of God. Love without expectation. Once we let go of expectations, we stop trying to force people into boxes, smash them into a takeout containers that contain even their fractional vastness as representatives of the whole. We start to experience the world as it truly exists. We can notice when we start to wish things were different, when we start to fantasize about outcome. Instead, we can do good things, be kind to people, have no expectations for any particular outcome. As the Dalai Lama once said, quote, "I am open to the guidance of synchronicity and do not let expectations hinder my path." Quote, "A wonderful gift may be wrapped as you expect." Going into our daily lives, we try and correct the imbalance by interacting with our so-called counterpole, men courting women, women courting men, deep within hidden in realms of the soul. So basically, when we look into the mirror reflection of the other, we see our own image on one level and in recognition on the other. That seems to be the key to finding ourselves through love. When we talk about sex, sex is very interesting. Sensuality is everything, and sensuality can only exist when equals meet and surrender. Trust is the key. Trust and non-competition. Equals don't compete, they accept. The rhythm is conquering, surrendering, conquering, surrendering. Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. The love frequency. Did you know that there was a love frequency? The love frequency is the miracle note of the original solfeggio musical scale. Independently confirmed by researchers, these core creative frequencies were used by ancient priests and healers in advanced civilizations to manifest miracles and produce blessings. Math scientist Victor Shaul describes 528 as the fundamental to the ancient pi, phi, and the golden mean evident throughout natural design. Scholl and Reed, a pioneer in acoustic research, has proven that 528 is essential to sacred geometry of circles and spirals consistent with the DNA structuring and hydrosonic restructuring. 528 resolves to a 6, the icon for physical manifestation. The symbol 6 reflects the spiraling down from the heaven into the wholeness of earth. In fact, the love frequency can be fundamental to broadcasting all matter and energy into reality according to the law of physics. Exploring soulmates and twin flames. We live in a universe that is all one. This means that the same energy, the united consciousness, is projecting itself forward as you. It is also projecting itself forward as your boyfriend or girlfriend, your dog, or your fridge. So to say that one thing is an expression in the universe is the most important thing is a misunderstanding, because ultimately it is all one thing. You are everything in existence. So at the highest level of existence, everything is your soulmate. When we speak about the twin flame or soulmate, they're referring to having the two halves of the same soul. The theory suggests that in the beginning of time, we were created as a perfect soul, which split into two halves. One of these halves contained the female energy, and the other comprised the male. The theory is that the two halves would be incarnated into human forms to live, experience, and expand until the day that the two experientially rich halves would meet again to ascend back to source. However, this theory is flawed in that it attributes physical characteristics to a formless soul. A soul cannot truly be split in two because it is not a physical clump of energy. In reality, a soul is merely a stream of consciousness. Bruce Lee, I am not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. All right, here we see a map with different emotions that were heat map that was a team of scientists in Finland used a topographical self-reported method to reveal effects of different emotional states on bodily sensations. Over 700 participants from Finland, Sweden, and Thailand. Notice love, contempt, depression, Notice the light of love right here. And then depression, the darkness, neutral. These are our energies. We're energy beings, energy and frequency and vibration. This is who we are. This is how we feel. So their research findings were published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Sensations in the upper limbs, most prominent approach-oriented emotions, anger and happiness, where sensations of decreased limb activity were a defining feature of sadness. Sensations in digestive systems around the throat region were mainly found in disgust. In contrast with all other emotions, happiness was associated with enhanced sensations all over the body. Now, this was published by Carolyn Baker, starts with a quote by Rumi. I saw grief drinking a cup of sorrow and called out, "It tastes sweet, does it not?" You caught me, grief answered, and you've ruined my business. How can I sell sorrow when you know it's a blessing? And this is about these times. Modernity has little relationship with the deeper ancient spiritual symbolism of the heart, nor does mass culture connect the high incidence of congestive heart failure with the clogging of emotion, particularly grief, in the body and the psyche meaning soul. Additionally, little attention is paid to the diminishing capacity for compassion in cultures fixated on science and technology and how that deficit may be somatized into heart failure. Industrial evilization trains us to consider a compassion towards others and towards ourselves as irrelevant. Franz Weller notes that compassion arises from the fertile ground of belonging. Exile is inherent in modernity, no tribe or community to which we belong. But what does it mean to belong? Does it mean that we were born into a family or group by virtue of carrying their DNA? Belonging in traditional cultures meant much more than being part of a family. It meant that one's family, indeed the entire community, perceives one's birth as a momentous occurrence. To use language that might be more typical of tribal cultures, the birth of the child was perceived as an advent or visitation from invisible realms and signifying a kind of revelation for the entire community. Because the child was perceived as a sacred messenger from eternity, it was the community's duty to care for, protect, and forever claim the child as its own. From the child's perspective, he or she would never feel exiled because they always had a home, a soft place to fall, a refuge, a fixed point in a changing universe. Equally important in traditional cultures was a sense of belonging to the earth. The indigenous man or woman knew that if they lost their entire tribe, they could seek refuge in the earth, which was their most elemental tribe. Such a cellular, deeply ingrained sense of belonging is not fundamentally cognitive, but rather heartfelt, communicated from the heart of the community to the heart of the child. In this way, compassion is cultivated, both compassion for others and for oneself. But what is the essence of compassion? Generally, it means, quote, to suffer with the other, also empathy. It means the willingness to feel in one's heart the pain of loss which another person is experiencing, and the pain which we ourselves may be experiencing. It also requires us to feel deeply the pain of other species who are suffering because of humanity's heartless, bloodless, profit-driven madness. But feeling in itself is not the primary purpose of compassion, because compassion is meaningless if we do not act on what we feel or whatever extent we are able to. Empathy. And while it may be easier to have compassion, it has been ingrained in us by virtue of growing up in a tribe and having a cellular sense of belonging. We can deepen our compassion by cultivating an intimate relationship with Earth. Another means of deepening our compassion, or perhaps easing congestive heart failure, our own bodies and culture, is to allow heartbreak followed by consciousness, intentional grieving. Again, this is not a passive, self-absorbed process in which we mourn without the end or without taking action, but rather a willingness to grieve personal and planetary losses as a healing practice, both for ourselves and for other beings. Well, in Africa, I'm not sure that my pain for the endangered elephant has no effect on it. I can't prove that it does, nor can I prove that it doesn't. We know that animals grieve as verified by countless videos. If I cannot or will not grieve, then in a sense, I am abdicating my animal self and my relationship with other animal selves. What I'm really talking about here is the willingness to let our hearts break wide open, and why that is not only important, but necessary. The inescapable searing truth is that there is no way we can inhabit a body on this planet and not be confronted with heartbreak at every turn. If we were to stop resisting what the body and the planet are pleading for us to do and instead open to the heartbreak, we would ultimately experience the magnificent, resplendent, sacred core of our being and inevitably experience more the joy than we imagined possible. And then closing with David White, speaking at the Psychotherapy Networker Convention, Shrinkville. When we think about it, there is no journey of sincerity that a human being can take in life without having their heart broken. And there's no love affair you can follow without an imaginary organ being rent asunder at one time or another. And there's no marriage, no matter how happy it is, that won't leave you helpless and wanting it at times, leaving you literally with a broken heart. Not only that there is no work you can follow with having your heart broken, if you are sincere about your vocation, you will get to the thresholds where you'll not know how to proceed, and where you will forget yourself, and where you start to imprison yourself with the very endeavor that was first a doorway to freedom. And then, in that third marriage with the self, a real sincere examination of the old interior substrate should, if you are sincere, lead to existential disappointment. And if you don't become disappointed in yourself, you're not trying. So it's interesting to think there's no path a human being can take without real courage that doesn't lead to real heartbreak. It is astonishing to see how human beings actually spend an enormous amount of their time and energy turning away from that possibility and trying to arrange for a life where you won't be touched and you will be left immune by the great forces and elements of life. And of course, when you leave those forces and elements behind you, you leave the very genius at the heart of what you're attempting to bring into the world, to incarnate into the world, including the incarnation of your own presence. Grief work is the work of the responsible, mature women and men. Moreover, as predictably as the day follows night, when our hearts are broken open, the very natural and innate joy which is lifeblood of our humanity is liberated. Or as a Buddhist teacher, Pema Chodron notes, quote, "This is the beauty of being alive, laughing until you cry or crying until you laugh," end quote. In this culture, we think we know what joy feels like, but as with all emotions, joy is multi-layered. Without the catalyst of grief, we are able to experience superficial or even moderately deep layers of joy, but deep grieving unleashes the deepest layers of joy, and in my experience, restores wholeness to a fragmented psyche so that we can more skillfully create wholeness in a broken world. Rumi's quote at the beginning of this article captures the quintessential essence of the heartbreak. In the end, it can be the most precious gift imaginable. If we are willing to follow the path of grief into which beckons us, without heartbreak, there will be no happy heart. Life is glorious, Pema Chodron says, but life is also wretched. It is both. One inspires us, the other softens us. They go together. So in closing, I want to give you a little astrological reading from today. This is from empoweringastrology.com. Saturn is the realer than the real Capricorn. With Venus and Pisces, our hearts be open to the shimmering redemptive force of love in all its forms. Pisces teaches us that miracles can happen, but Saturn is in realer than real Capricorn. We don't sidestep reality, we find the balance. There's an interesting story going on between Venus and Mars, two relationship planets. They're squaring off, which heats up passion and romance, but tangled up in this love story is Neptune, the planet of divine love. Venus and Neptune in Pisces invites us to open up to the bigger picture of love, a love that goes beyond the pain and suffering of the past, a love that returns us to something greater.
So I want to turn your attention to this subject, loving your enemies. It's so basic to me because it is a part of my basic philosophical and theological orientation, the whole idea of love, the whole philosophy of love. In the 5th chapter of the Gospel as recorded by St. Matthew, we read these very arresting words flowing from the lips of our Lord and Master. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. Certainly these are great words, words lifted to cosmic proportions.
The time has come to test the faith of all mankind, to live or die or make a better way. We've reached a crucial time, and bickering about our differences will only feed the brain. We must retain the positive and follow God's message again. Who remembers the time gone by when peace and love ruled the day? Who remembers those mighty words of all of God's messengers? Love, love, alright. Love is the only way. Love, whoa, yeah. Love is the only way. There's only so many messengers in each generation. There's only so many precious signs in each visitation. Yeah. There's only so many messengers in each generation.
Give, always give what you can, even if your allies draw lines in the sand. And dig, always dig a little deeper. Sometimes it's hard to be my brother's keeper. Love, so you let love in. Baby, I am home in the wake of your skin, and it's crazy how we wear a ceremony. Always be open to your path and your journey. Yes, she cradles my loneliness, a home in a forest nest. Universal test, feel the weight of my love. Put your hand on my chest and rest in the cradle of my arms. The battle that we face is a place where our scars come from. And to pick up the gun, my love, we are destined to teach these ones to be brave and never run away. Courage is birthed from the womb on the first light of day. Yeah, the day you were born, you came out perfect, never meant to be torn in silence. Never been so loud in the violence, never been so proud of our people. When we're fighting for a change, not afraid to lose it all. Despite all the rage, we are animals, and we cannot be caged. Provoke us to fight, so we burn a little sage and write poetry. Wiser than the enemy will ever be. The minority and authority. Are you here to protect or arrest me? I can't tolerate the hate, and I'm losing sleep. Can't breathe, cause they're choking out a war in me. Immorality, yeah. Love letters to God. I wonder if she reads them, or if they get lost in the stars, stars, and the stars. Yeah. So many parts to a heavy heart. If there's no beginning, then where would you start? Start, where would you start? Human souls, so we carve them into story, tell them pose. Cause we're always searching for a certain goal, a pattern of physics, a role. Don't believe how you're told, and open up your fist. A misconception, you can fight like this and praise. With the power of prayer, if God's on our side, we can take the stairs to the Always give what you can, even if your allies draw lines in the sand and dig. Always dig a little deeper. Sometimes it's hard to be my brother's keeper. Love, so you let love in. Baby, I am home in the wake of your skin, and it's crazy how we wear a ceremony. Always be open to your path and your journey. Yes, she cradles my loneliness. A home at a forest nest. Universal test. Feel the weight of my love. Put your hand on my chest and rest. In the cradle of my arms, the battle that we face is a place where our scars come from. And to pick up the gun, my love, we are destined to teach these ones to be brave and never run away. Courage is birthed from the womb on the first light of day. Yeah, the day you were born, you came out perfect, never meant to be torn in silence. Never been so loud in the violence, never been so proud of our people. When we're fighting for a change, not afraid to lose it all. Despite all the rage, we are animals, and we cannot be caged. Provoke us to fight, so we burn a little sage and write poetry. Wiser than the enemy will ever be. The minority and authority. Are you here to protect or arrest me? I can't tolerate the hate, and I'm losing sleep. Can't breathe, cause they're choking out a war in me. Immorality, yeah. Love letters to God. I wonder if she reads them, or if they get lost in the stars, stars, and stars. Yeah. So many parts to a heavy heart. If there's no beginning, then where would you start? Start. Where would you start? Human souls, so we carve them into story, tell them pose. Cause we're always searching for a certain goal, a pattern of physics, a role. Don't believe how you're told, and open up your fist. A misconception, you can fight like this and praise. With the power of prayer, if God's on our side, we can take the stairs to the heavens. Flipping through my chapter 7, I live with the snakes and the great deception, no court. In this country for men who steal from the mother on paper with pen. And we're tripping down a red dirt road, and we're asking, is this the way we should go? Kissing soft top feet